In previous training videos, you learned how to use some of the functions, the basic functions like the sum function, which will go ahead and select a range of cells and add them up. Also within that range, you have the count function that counts up the number of cells that actually have numbers in it, and also averaging out the numbers within that range. In fact, if you look down at the stat bar with the range that I have selected up above, you can see that it gives us some of the basics like the average here, 108,000. It counts up 4 cells that actually have numbers in it, and then it sums them all up, 432,000. Well, if I want to place conditions or criteria on what I want to add up, count up, or average out, I'm going to use the sum if, count if, or average if functions. For example, here's the bonus I want to calculate, okay? But the bonus is conditional upon if they made sales in any one of these categories that's over $100,000. So for Max Cleaner, I would give him a 10% bonus on the total sales he made in books, on-site training, and consulting. But he'd lose out on the videos. I'm going to use the sum if function. For example, I'm going to come over here, click in cell H6, come up here on the formula bar, click on the Insert Function button, and you can come up here and type in sum if, and then just go ahead and hit go, and it will pull it down below. Now, I've already used this, so it's one of my most recent functions. Now you have what's called the sum if and the sum ifs. One of them's plural. The difference between the two is, if you look down here in the description, is that the sum ifs, plural, means that if you have a given set of conditions or criteria, more than one condition, where the sum if is just one condition or one criteria. Well, I'm going to use the sum ifs because I'm going to have more than one condition here or criteria. Select it, click OK, and I'll show you what I mean here. First of all, it wants to ask me what the sum of the range I want to add up is. I'm going to click and drag this out of the way, and it's going to be this range right here, which is D6 through G6. I can do it one of two ways. I can either just, move this down out of the way, then click and drag, and it will select it, or I can type in the number, or I can go ahead and click the collapse dialog box button and then select it, and then click this again to expand it. In fact, if I just don't even collapse it here and I just click and drag here, you see how it automatically collapses that window there, and then when I let go it pops it back open. The whole purpose of actually clicking on these little arrows is because this thing's so much in the way. If you had a lot of numbers you want to be able to see, you want to be able to collapse it, then you don't have much to deal with, and you can move that easily out of the way and then go ahead and click and drag and select your range. Now I have to be careful because I already selected it right here. If I go back and select it again, it keeps adding more and more and more, and that becomes a mess. So I'm going to select this, hit the backspace key to delete it, and start over again. Click and drag and select that range just once, okay? And then I can hit enter on the keyboard and it will pop this back open. That's theoretically what I want it to add up. However, I only want to add up those cells based on certain criteria. What's the criteria that it has to meet? What's the criteria range? Well, it's going to be the same range as the range I want to add up, meaning when I click down here, it says this range is the range of cells you want evaluated for a particular condition. The first range that I have up here is just the range I want to add up. This second range down here is the range I want evaluated. I want it to evaluate the same range that I want it to add up. So I click and drag and select it, hit enter on the keyboard, and then finally the criteria that this range has to meet before it starts adding up whatever it does meet. So the criteria is going to say greater than, let's say, $100,000. And then once I hit the tab key, it automatically adds up the range in this sense. It looks at this and it says there's $100,000. Then it looks at the criteria range or the evaluated range, and it's this range right here. And it says out of what I can see here, only 3 of them is over $100,000. And then out of the 3 of them, it says to go ahead and in this range sum them up. And it's not going to sum up, D6 here because it's not meeting part of the criteria range that meets the actual criteria, or the evaluation range that's meeting the criteria here. So all I have to do is go ahead and click OK, and let's see if this checks out. 355,000. Well, we know these 3 cells meet the criteria of being over $100,000, and if I look down here, it's 355,000, so it works. Now, I don't want this to be the bonus because if I do that, I lose all my profits and everything, right? But that's the total amount that I want to base a bonus upon. So all I have to do is just say, okay, of the 355,000 that you did meet the criteria that's over 100,000 in each category, I'm going to select the cell here, come up in the formula bar referring to this cell, this function in the cell, and say I want to take the total amount here and multiply it, timesing it using the asterisk by, let's say, 0.10 or just 0.1, 10%, hit enter. So he gets 35,000 for this range that met the criteria of being over $100,000. Then all I have to do is click in this cell, hover over the lower right hand corner to click and drag the black autofill handle, let go, and it automatically fills in the rest for me. This poor guy, Britt, just didn't make anything over $100,000, so he got a 0 bonus. Next, I want to use the count if function to say, look, for the number of bonuses that in each category that somebody's going to get, like the total bonuses that you can get for all categories is a total of 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this one ought to actually return the number of just 3 categories, right, that you got a bonus from. So let's click in here, come up on the fx function, and let's do count. And then I'm going to go ahead and click go. And then there's the count if and ifs. I'm going to go ahead and use count ifs. Double click on that, opens it back up, says, okay, what's my criteria range here? And it's going to be the same range. Click the collapse dialog box button and select all 3 categories for Max Cleaner that he made sales in. Hit enter on the keyboard to pop it back open. Click down on my criteria range 1 here. This one's a little bit more simplistic than the sum if function because it's just saying out of this range, what criteria do you want it to meet, and then I'll go ahead and just count it up. So it's got to be over $100,000, so greater than $100,000. Hit the tab key and look, it returns 3 of the 4 cells or the categories that Max Cleaner made sales in. And then just click OK. So there's, well, not $3. I want to change it up here on the home tab in the number group from currency to maybe just a number there. So it may be a number without decimal points. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and go to Format Cells. And then just say no decimal places. And then click OK. Alright, 3 looks good. And then just click and drag the autofill handle and let go to fill in the rest of the formula for me. Copy it all in. So it's saying out of the 4 categories, only 2 here were met that were over $100,000, and it's these 2 right here. So when I click and drag and select it, down the stat bar it's $267,000, and 10% of that is $26,000, and looks good. Okay, what about the average bonus size that we're going to be handing out here? Come back here, click on the insert function. Let's type in our average, and then I hit the tab key and it zipped from average over to the go, and you can see it's outlined in go. Then I can just hit enter. And then down below, you can see there's average. I'm using my arrow keys to go down to average ifs. Then I can hit enter on the keyboard once I have it selected, and it says, okay, what's the average range? Well, it's going to be from consulting all the way back to videos. Click and drag, there it is. Click in the criteria range, criteria 1. Now in this one, it wants the range that we want evaluated. Okay, this is the range it's going to average, but this is the range I want evaluated if it meets certain criteria to give me that average. So back in this range, I'm going to say, okay, well, I want you to evaluate this range right here. Click and drag. Okay, click in the criteria. What criteria does this range that we're evaluating have to meet? Well, it has to be greater than $100,000. Now, if I wanted greater than or equal to, I could put the equal sign over to the right side of the greater than symbol. You don't want to put it on the left side because if you do, you're going to get errors. And then go ahead, be sure to hit the tab key. If it gives me a number right here, some sort of results, I know that it's working. Because let's say that I switched this around and I said equals or greater than, then hit the tab key. You see how it gives me a mess down here, doesn't give me a number? It doesn't understand that. It has to be always greater than, and then equals will come on the right hand side of that greater than or less than symbol. Hit the tab key, it gives me the number. I'm good to go. Click OK. There we go. 118,000 is the average bonus size here. And what is it averaging out? Well, again, if I click and drag all 3 cells here that meet that criteria, that's over $100,000. You can see when I select it, it's 118,000 here. There's the 118,000. So click in here, click and drag the black cross down here, the autofill handle. Notice the last one, it doesn't like being divided by 0, and that's what it's doing. That's why it gives me a divided by 0 error here. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, as soon as I upload a new video, you'll be notified instantly, and you can do that by coming over here and clicking on my face. You can also click here to support me, so for $2 a month, you can have access to over 2,700 training videos, all ad-free, and for a few bucks more, you can have access to my exercises, instructor notes, quizzes, certificate of completion, and a whole lot more.